All right, let's go ahead and dive into this cover for Megadeth's awesome album, Rust in Peace. The horrific Big Four concludes with this episode. Hope you enjoyed this dive into these four titans of thrash metal music. Where will Megadeth land in the horrific Big Four? Stay tuned to the very end for that. Spoiler alert, they're not beating Slayer. But will they get to number two? Again, stay tuned and you'll find out. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this cover, which I've always thought was a pretty cool looking cover. You've got Vic Rattlehead in a business suit with the cool looking Vic Rattlehead head. I always like the look of him with the way the goggles and stuff around his eyes and the things hanging off and all that jazz. He's holding this green thing in his hand that really kind of draws the eye in really quickly. You've got these figures, these important world leaders, more on that in a minute, of who these are sitting around him. The whole cover is in blue, which really pops. Very cold, very cool kind of color. The Megadeth logo is in gold, which I really like. There's some goldish, yellowish light on this alien inside this little cryo tube sort of thing. And the alien looks like a traditional alien inside here, inside this tube. And it looks like there's some red splattered in there too. So it's a very cool looking undercover, hidden secrets kind of thing. What is the government hiding sort of thing. And looking at this cover, you might say, well, it doesn't seem like a lot of horror, and maybe not to you, but I think it's a 4. I think it's leaning a little more towards Freddy's Nightmares because disclosing that there are aliens among us and aliens on this earth and that the government is hiding aliens, I mean, that's kind of horrific and kind of scary to think about. And aliens in general are kind of scary and kind of horrific, especially if they come down to Earth like in War of the Worlds and decide to take us over. If they're ET aliens, it's a little different story, but there are some kind of aliens out there. I mean, look at Alien or Aliens, those movies. I mean, those are some scary aliens too. So anytime you're kind of dealing with UFOs, aliens, or UAPs, they say these days, I kind of lean a little more towards horror. So that's why I give this cover a 4. So on a scale of 1 to 6, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to 6, Freddy's Nightmares, this cover is a 4. So Megadeth's Rust in Peace lands there. Next up, how horrific is the title? But before I get there, let me go ahead and say thanks for tuning in to the Disembodied Screams podcast. Those returning, thank you. Those new to this podcast, welcome. Now let's go ahead and rate this title. And folks, this title, it's another one with just, like a lot of these in this horrific Big Four, it's just not a lot of horror. Rust in Peace. I mean, I hear no horror at all within Rust in Peace. If it was maybe Rest in Peace or Rest in Pieces, maybe. That'd be pretty horrific sounding. But Rust in Peace, I think it's a 1. That's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. You could say Rust in Peace on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and be just fine. You would not scare one single child saying that. So the cover's a 4. The title's a 1. Album information is from Wikipedia, and it goes like this. Rust in Peace is the 4th album by American thrash metal band Megadeth, released on September 24th, 1990, as the 80s were just eking away. The 80s bled just a little bit into the early 90s, and we still got some of these amazing 80s style music and bands at the cusp, at the very edge of the 90s before grunge took over. It was released by Capitol Records. It was the first Megadeth album to feature guitarist Marty Friedman and drummer Nick Menza. A whole list of just rotating members in this band. Dave Mustaine is the center, is the figurehead, and around him has been just a whole host of just guitarists and bassists and drummers. Just go look at Wikipedia and look at the members in this band. It's incredible. Kind of maybe what says a little something about Dave Mustaine. When you see members falling away around certain members, but only one person remains, kind of makes that person stand out a little bit and say they might be a little hard to work with. Anyways, moving on. The songs Hanger 18 and Holy Wars of Punishment Do were released as singles. I'll get more to that in a minute. A remixed and remastered version of the album featuring 4 bonus tracks was released in 2004. It goes on to say, since its release, Rust in Peace has often been named as one of the best thrash metal records of all time. Can't argue with that. By publications such as Decibel and Kerrang, and listed in the reference book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Also don't disagree with that. The album was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Metal Performance at the 33rd Grammy Awards. At the 1991 Foundations Forum, the album received a Concrete Foundations Award for Top Radio Album, and the single Hanger 18 won Top Radio Cut Award. So there you go, some good cred for this album, and well deserved. Those are all banging songs. The songs they mentioned there, Hanger 18 especially, just a banging tune from start to finish. All right, personnel on this one. Kind of touched briefly on it, go a little deeper here. Dave Mustaine, lead vocals and guitars. Dave Elfson, bass and backing vocals. Marty Friedman on guitars, and Nick Menza on drums and backing vocals. And if I'm not mistaken, Dave Elfson, he's one of the few that kind of managed to hang around a little longer than the other ones, deep into Megadeth's discography. It was the other ones, around those two that kind of rotated. And then eventually David was out, and then it was just Dave just rotating through a bunch of them. Additional musicians, Sandra Rabin, laugh on Lucretia, and Chris Poland, lead guitar on the demo tracks only is what it says. So that must have been through the bonus that came through. That sounds like a lawnmower just kicked in outside, so I apologize for that. In an apartment complex, you don't really know when and where the lawnmowers are going to happen, so hopefully the mic won't pick up too much of it. Singles from Rust in Peace, Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, September 23rd, 1990. Hanger 18, February 4th, 1991. So close. Grunge was starting to happen about that point in time, so they managed to get Hanger 18 in there just in time. Track listing goes like this. Let me make sure my notes are right. This script sometimes does some weird stuff. Okay. Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, Hanger 18, Take No Prisoners, 5, Mad Jicks, really like that song, Poison Was the Cure, Lucretia, Tornado of Souls, On the Dawn Patrol. You know that song? I really like the spoken word sort of thing of Dawn Patrol. It's just real creepy vibe on that one. Rust in Peace, Polaris to close it out. And looking at all these songs, I've kind of mentioned a little bit of spookiness. Dawn Patrol has a little spookiness to it. But looking through these songs, Holy Wars, not so much. Hanger 18, talking about aliens, that's creepy. Take No Prisoners, I think 5 Magics, is that dealing with something dark? I think so, if I'm not mistaken. Poison Was the Cure. Lucretia, I think Lucretia is the one, if I'm not mistaken, about the ghost in the attic that Dave wrote. Something about a ghost in an attic. I need to look that up a little further. But I think that's where Lucretia came from. There was some kind of story about that where Dave was either, I think it was high or something like that, and he kept imagining a ghost in the attic, or he kept hearing things in the attic, and he thought it was a ghost, so that's kind of where this song came from, I think. I will double check myself in a minute, and if I did not get that right, I will throw a little something at the very end to say, hey, I was an idiot and I was wrong. But I think that's right. Tornado of Souls, love that tune, amazing song. Dawn Patrol, and then Rust in Peace. So I don't see a lot of too much horror in this, but there's just enough. There's tiny little fragments of horror spread throughout. So that's why I gave the songs a 3. I think there was just enough in there to kind of give it a little spooky vibe, but not so much to make you run for the hills and grab the crucifix and everything. So the songs are a 3. So how horrific is the album Rust in Peace by the mighty, awesome Megadeth? Let's put all those numbers into a little pot. Let's stir it up. Make it really nice and gooey and juicy and pussy. And let's pull out that number and let's see where this album lands on the list of the horrific Big Four. It's a 2.7, so not very horrific at all. It's definitely a little more towards Mr. Rogers' neighborhood than Freddy's Nightmares, but it's a 2.7. Most of these horrific big four are just not very horrific. Beyond the album covers, the album covers have a lot of horror, but when you get into the music and the titles and things of that nature, there's just not a lot of horror there. Even though I'm looking forward to diving into Testament, they have a lot more horror in their music than I realized. They probably should have been in this big four, big five pantheon somewhere along the way. Amazing band. All right, 10 minutes, starting to ramble. Let's get into the rest of this. I mentioned a minute ago about who's on the cover. According to Wikipedia, the men featured on the cover are from left to right: an unidentified British representative, Japanese Prime Minister Toshiki Kaifu, Kaifu, German President Richard von Weizsäcker, Weizsacker, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, and United States President George H.W. Bush. So there you go. And I've already kind of talked about a little bit about the horrific big four. This album really does not land in the horrific top five at all. It doesn't even get close to it. It looks up at it, but that's about all it does. And it actually, Dave, you finally beat Metallica at something, because Megadeth's Rust in Peace is coming in third, barely beating Metallica. So Dave, golf clap for you. You finally overcame those demons and beat Metallica at something. So horrific big four goes like this, as the lawnmower comes back again. Slayer, Hell Awaits, 5.9. Anthrax, Among the Living at number 3. Kudos to Anthrax, because I don't think they get enough love. Nice to see them come in at second. Megadeth, Rust in Peace at 2.7. And Metallica's Master of Puppets at 2.4. So there you go. That's how the horrific big four lines up. Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, and Metallica. All right, let me drop anchor here and close out the episode. If you like what you hear, don't forget to do whatever you can do to support this podcast. You're on YouTube, you know what to do. The podcast platform you are currently on, just look at it. When you're done here, just hit the pause button. Before you go to your next thing, just hit the pause button and say, what can I do to help this thing grow and to make it show? Whatever it is, whatever you can do, I truly appreciate it. And sharing it with your friends helps a lot too. So do that as well. And maybe take it outside. Go get your phone, get you a Bluetooth speaker, go set it outside somewhere in a public space and just turn it on. And just walk away and just let everybody go, what the hell is going on with that guy? Come back and read your speaker, man. But anyways, yeah, just whatever you can do, just find a way to give this podcast some love. It needs some help. Like I've said before, YouTube doesn't like me doing movies and music. There's a big horror umbrella, and I got the music and movies up underneath this horror umbrella. So why can't the algorithm figure it out? I don't know. So just do whatever you can to help me out, on YouTube especially, because the podcast, I'm extremely happy with the podcast. Thank you guys for listening so much and giving me so much hope on the podcast side of things. All right, go out today, grab Megadeth's Rust in Peace, crank that thing as loud as you can possibly crank it. Make sure your speakers crack. Make sure the cars around you rattle from the sound of this massive, awesome, awesome album. And then just let the world know how great this band is and how great this album is. Be good.